What New York team won the very first NBA game and has a story filled with highs, lows, and everything in between? Let's talk about the New York Knicks.
Hi, I'm Leah, feeling super excited about today's topic.
And I'm Garrett, ready to dive into one of the most iconic sports franchises. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett. All right, let's set the stage for this one. Today's all about the New York Knicks, a franchise that helped write the first pages of professional basketball and still anchors the culture of New York City.
Totally. The Knicks are a day one team in the sport's modern history, and their story is woven into the heartbeat of the city, from Madison Square Garden to the street chatter in every borough. Okay, here we go. From the top. My first time at Madison Square Garden, I was sitting way up high, the rafters that make you feel like you're part of the ceiling. This older fan next to me started rattling off history like it was family lore, pointing down at midcourt and saying, basically, you're looking at a stage where the Knicks helped start it all. The crowd was this wall of sound. It kind of gave me chills. He told me the Knicks won the first game in what became the NBA back in November 1946 against the Toronto Huskies, 68-66. They flashed a few then and now clips during a timeout, and I remember thinking, wow, this place is more than a building. It's a time capsule. Walking out onto 7th Avenue afterward, it clicked for me that the Knicks aren't just a team. They're a thread that runs through generations in this city.
That's pretty cool, right? The Garden has that layered energy. It's like urban exploration for sports fans. You can feel past and present stacked in the air. And that first game win you mentioned is such a perfect opening sentence to the Knicks story. Let me paint the picture for you. The Knicks are a professional basketball team in the NBA, based in Manhattan, New York City, founded in 1946. The league they helped start was called the BAA, or Basketball Association of America. Think of it as the pilot version of the NBA, which officially formed in 1949 after merging with a rival league. Being a charter member means they were in the group that launched the league from day one. They play in the Eastern Conference, specifically the Atlantic Division, which is just the NBA's way of grouping nearby teams for scheduling and rivalries.
And their home court is Madison Square Garden, the famous arena in Midtown Manhattan. It's shared with the New York Rangers hockey team, and it's more than a venue. It's a brand in itself. Quick note on franchise, since we'll say it a lot. That just means the official, long-term business and team entity that's part of the league. The Knicks, along with the Boston Celtics, are the only original franchises still in their original cities since 1946, which signals some serious continuity. That stability fuels rivalries, especially with the Celtics and also with the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Toronto Raptors in their division. Rivalry is basically that repeat competition heat where history adds spice to every new game.
Imagine being part of the first chapter of a book that defines a sport. The founding meeting for the league happened at the Commodore Hotel in June 1946, and the Knicks were immediately tethered to the biggest media market in the country, which gave them outsized visibility from the jump. Let's dig into this. In June 1946, the BAA was formed at the Commodore Hotel by leaders including Walter A. Brown, who owned the Boston Garden, and Max Case, a New York sports writer who advocated for a viable pro league that used top college talent. Ned Irish, who was the president of Madison Square Garden, gets awarded the New York franchise. That decision mattered because MSG had a rule that it had to own the teams playing there, so venue and team were aligned from day one.
Ned Irish, by the way, was a promoter and former sports writer who pushed hoops at the Garden even before the league existed. He hired St. John's coach Joe Lapchick, a respected college coach known for fast, crisp offense, but Lapchick asked to finish his season at St. John's first. So Neil Cohalan stepped in as the interim head coach to guide the brand new roster through the uncertain launch.
Their first training camp was at the Nivelle Country Club in the Catskills. Picture 25 invitees, 2-a-day practices, and, since there wasn't a draft that first year, a big emphasis on local college stars who New Yorkers already knew. Smart marketing and team building rolled into one.
And then the historic tip-off. November 1946, Toronto Huskies versus New York Knicks at Maple Leaf Gardens. The Knicks win 68-66, and Leo Gottlieb, one of their guards, drops 14 points. That's the first official game in the BAA, and by extension, NBA history.
Early on, because Madison Square Garden's calendar was packed, the Knicks played a bunch of home dates at the 69th Regiment Armory. Even with the shuffle, they finished 33-27 and won a playoff series against the Cleveland Rebels before losing to the Philadelphia Warriors. That immediate playoff presence told the city the Knicks could hang in the new league.
In 1947, Joe Lapchick finally takes over, and his style, quick pace, and ball movement clicks. The Knicks make the first of 9 straight playoff appearances under him. That's quiet consistency in an era when the league was still figuring itself out.
Another big early milestone comes in 1947 and 1948 when the Knicks signed Wataru Misaka, the first non-Caucasian player in the BAA. Misaka, a Japanese-American guard, cracked the door open for broader inclusion in pro basketball just after World War II. That's a powerful moment, even if it didn't make huge headlines at the time.
They also drafted Harry Gallatin in 1948, who became a rugged Knicks stalwart, while Dolph Schayes chose to play for the Syracuse Nationals in the rival NBL, the National Basketball League. That tug-of-war led to the 1949 merger, where BAA and NBL became the NBA. The Knicks stayed in the East and were steady competitors through the transition. Here's where it gets really interesting. In 1950 to 1951, the Knicks signed Nat Sweetwater Clifton, a skilled forward who became one of the first black players in the NBA. The Knicks reached their first NBA Finals that year, falling to the Rochester Royals. They go back to the finals in 1952 and 1953, losing to the Minneapolis Lakers, the dynasty then led by the great center George Mikan.
Those finals runs stamped the Knicks as early heavy hitters, even if they had to get past Mikan's Lakers, which almost nobody did. Then comes a lull with coaching changes and roster wear and tear through the mid-1950s and early 60s. The next true pivot is 1964 when the Knicks draft Willis Reed, a center with leadership presence who wins Rookie of the Year and changes their trajectory.
Midway through the 1967 to 1968 season, Red Holzman becomes head coach. Holzman's approach, defense, sharing the ball, and accountability. It sounds simple, but in practice it was transformational. It's like choosing a team-first operating system. Everyone's app runs smoother. Rookies, Walt Frazier and Phil Jackson make the all-rookie team, and the vibe around the Knicks shifts almost immediately.
In 1968 to 1969, the Knicks acquired Dave DeBusschere, a tough defensive forward. Paired with Willis Reed, that front line becomes the backbone of the league's best defense. They go 54-28, sweep the Bullets, and you can feel a contender forming piece by piece.
Then comes 1969 to 1970, the 18-game winning streak and a 60-22 season. In the finals against the Los Angeles Lakers, Willis Reed tears a muscle in Game 5, and yet the Knicks rally from down 16 to win that game. The Lakers force a Game 7, nerves everywhere.
Game 7 at the Garden is legend. Reed limps out, hits the first 2 baskets, and the building basically levitates. Walt Frazier, an elite two-way guard, drops 36 points and 19 assists, and the Knicks win the title. Reed in that same season is All-Star MVP, regular season MVP, and Finals MVP. It's the gold standard of Knicks lore.
2 years later, 1971 to 1972, they add Jerry Lucas, a brilliant passing big man, and Earl the Pearl Monroe, a silky guard who blended his flair into the team-first system. They reach the finals, but lose to the Lakers. In 1972 to 1973, they run it back and beat those same Lakers in 5 for their second championship. Veteran savvy, precise execution. That's the Holzman blueprint fulfilled.
Fast forward to the 1990s. Pat Riley, the former Showtime Lakers coach, arrives and flips the Knicks into a defense-first machine. Patrick Ewing, the franchise center drafted number 1 in 1985, is the anchor, with enforcers like Charles Oakley and versatile wings like John Starks. The identity is rugged, low possession, high physicality basketball. It fit the East of that era perfectly.
Jeff Van Gundy, Riley's assistant turned successor, keeps that defense-first ethos. Then 1998 to 1999 hits, a lockout-shortened season, meaning fewer games compressed together. The Knicks trade Charles Oakley for Marcus Camby, a long, agile shot blocker, and they acquire Latrell Sprewell, a dynamic scorer on the wing. As the 8th seed at 27 and 23, they start a wild playoff ride.
They upset the top-seeded Miami Heat on Allen Houston's last-second runner. Houston, an elite mid-range and three-point shooter, threads that shot off the glass. They sweep the Hawks. Against the Pacers, Larry Johnson, an undersized power forward with a big-game gene, hits a 4-point play in Game 3. Patrick Ewing gets hurt before Game 3, and Marcus Camby steps up huge. The Knicks become the first 8th seed to make the NBA Finals.
In the finals, they face the San Antonio Spurs, led by Tim Duncan and David Robinson, two Hall of Fame bigs, and Avery Johnson, the steady point guard who nails the clincher in Game 5. The Knicks fall in 5, but the run stands as one of the great underdog stories in league history.
Jumping to the modern era. In early 2012, Jeremy Lin, an undrafted guard, gets his shot due to injuries and goes on a tear known as Linsanity. That term just means a sudden, viral burst of performance and attention. He ran Mike D'Antoni's pick-and-roll offense like he'd been waiting his whole life for it. The team and the city caught fire for weeks.
Then, 2012 to 2013, led by Carmelo Anthony, a top-tier scorer, and Tyson Chandler, a defensive anchor at center, the Knicks win the Atlantic Division for the first time since 1993 to 1994 and set an NBA single-season record for three-pointers made. In January 2014, Carmelo drops 62 points at the Garden, still the franchise and arena record. That one gave me chills.
Even during uneven years, the business side stayed massive. In 2014, Forbes valued the Knicks at about $1.4 billion, the highest in the NBA then. Valuation just means an estimate of a company's worth, and for the Knicks it reflects the NYC market, the Garden brand, and global visibility, as much as wins and losses.
Most recently, 2020 to 2021 was a genuine reset of hope, led by Julius Randle, a skilled forward who won Most Improved Player, and R.J. Barrett, the dynamic wing drafted 3rd overall in 2019. The return to the postseason kind of reconnected the fan base to the idea that better days are always within reach here.
Let's unpack this tricky question about racial integration. The Knicks signing of Nat Sweetwater Clifton in 1950 is often cited as a first, and I think it deserves spotlight. That contract was a formal, team-driven step, saying, we are signing a black player to compete at the highest level, which had ripple effects across the league.
Real talk, though, there's nuance. Chuck Cooper, a forward, was drafted by the Boston Celtics in April 1950, and Earl Lloyd, a forward with the Washington Capitals, became the first black player to appear in an NBA game in October 1950. So depending on how you define first drafted, first signed, or first to play, different names lead the list.
Yeah, that checks out. Clifton's first is about the contract and the Knicks' role as signers. Cooper's is about the draft mechanism. Lloyd's is about actually stepping on the floor in a regular season game. 3 doors into the same room of integration, each important in its own way.
Why does separating those firsts matter? I mean, emotionally, we just want to say, who opened the door?
Because each step is a different lever. Drafting is the league mechanism saying, your talent belongs here on merit. Signing is the team putting ink to paper, taking business risk, and making a public commitment. Playing first is the moment the barrier breaks in front of fans and media. Together, they accelerate the change. If you remove any one, integration looks different or slower.
That's close to the heart of it. The Knicks' role stands alongside the Celtics and the Capitals, and the fact that those milestones happened within months highlights a wave, not just a single point in time. To me, honoring all three, Clifton, Cooper, and Lloyd, tells the fuller story.
Totally. Speaking of cultural waves, Linsanity in 2012 went global. An undrafted guard suddenly putting up big numbers, selling out arenas, and spiking TV ratings. It's a reminder that New York magnifies moments. Viral, in this sense, just means attention spreading extremely fast across media and communities.
And there was that New York moment in 1994 when the Knicks were in the NBA Finals. At the same time, the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. The Rangers' championship celebration happened right there at the Garden during the Knicks series with the Rockets. Two huge storylines sharing the same building. The city felt like a single drumbeat.
Here's a thought I've been turning over. What if the Knicks had benched John Starks late in 1994 NBA Finals Game 6 for a sharpshooter like Rolando Blackman or Hubert Davis?
All right, let's set the scene for this one. John Starks, the Knicks' fiery shooting guard, had an off night in Game 6 against the Houston Rockets. He kept shooting, and it wasn't falling. Rolando Blackman, a veteran scorer known for calm mid-range touch, and Hubert Davis, a young specialist from 3, were both on the bench. If one of them checks in late and hits a couple of clean looks, you might change history. Maybe the Knicks close that game out, win the series, and lift the trophy.
If that happens, you shift legacies. Patrick Ewing becomes a champion at the height of the 90s, which reframes every debate about his career. Pat Riley, the head coach, might stay longer, avoiding the 1995 exit and keeping the defensive core intact. Maybe some of the later moves look different because that one banner changes the margin for patience. That's a big domino effect.
But here's the counterweight. Chemistry and trust matter, especially in clutch time. Benching Starks, who was integral to their identity, could have rippled through that locker room. And we can't forget Hakeem Olajuwon, the Rockets' legendary center, who made massive plays in that series. Even a switch might not overcome his impact. Do you change the plan for the hot hand or stick with your guy knowing that's the culture you built?
Why do coaches sometimes ride with the struggling star? I mean, from the outside, it feels obvious to swap in the shooter.
Because roles are rooted in months of habits. In a finals game, your star might snap into rhythm on the next possession, and the defense is keyed to him, which can create space for others. Also, the trust signal, staying with your guy, can be the glue that wins you a different game. It's a razor's edge. If Blackman or Davis checks in and hits, it's genius. If not, it's second-guessed forever.
Either way, that what-if shapes Knicks conversations to this day. It's the hinge in an already epic spring where one made shot could have swung a legacy and maybe an era.
And that's where we'll leave it for now. Stay curious and keep the conversation going next time on Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
So there we have it, folks. The Knicks' first steps, their peaks, the what-ifs. Plenty to chew on. Catch you next time.